You're listening to the Visibly Fit podcast. Hey, I'm your host, Wendie Pett, and every week I'll give you holistic, practical solutions for everyday issues related to nutrition, healing, functional fitness, and behavior modifications. As a naturopath, fitness expert, and wellness coach for over 20 years, my goal is to empower you to reach for greater health and to rise up to your next level of living in mind, body, and spirit. You were created with greatness in mind. It's time to own it. Are you with me? Then let's dive in. Hello and welcome to this episode of Visibly Fit. I'm your host, Wendie Pett. I am so excited to spend this time with you today, and I have a special guest on the show today, so man, you're going to want to lean in and listen to this incredible podcast. But just so you know, I share this often, but just as a reminder, this podcast is part of the Spark Media Network, and it can be found on the Edify app and now on Pray.com and KHCB streaming. So super excited about that. You know, the Bible tells us in Genesis 2:7, says, "Then the Lord God formed man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being." And we also read in Job 33:4, it says, "The Spirit of God has made me, and the breath of the Almighty gives me life." Yes, breath. Yes, God spoke this world into existence, and he breathed his breath into us so we could breathe and that we could live. Now, what if breath is the very thing that you struggle with? Maybe it's due to damaged or diseased lungs, or even from long COVID symptoms, related issues. I mean, several people have had COVID, including myself. So maybe you're dealing with some long COVID issues. I mean, how do you get your lungs healthy again? Is it even possible? And what if you think your lungs are just fine, but you could operate at an even greater, more optimal level to enhance your everyday living, your athletic performance, whether you're just an average exerciser or an athletic performer, that you are an athlete at heart, or even how you even sing at church. Yeah, truly, how you sing. What if you could become even better in those areas? The strength of your lungs controls the amount of oxygen in your body, and it impacts everything, even how you handle stress, and even at the rate at which you age. Well, listen, you are going to want to stick around because today's guest he's amazing. His name is Mark Carbone, and he is an inventor. He's an entrepreneur. He's a researcher, and he is the owner of PN Medical, and he's going to share about the power of breath and what he has just researched on and found a device that he really bought into and has made a big way in this world to help people breathe better and more efficiently and get healthy lungs again. So welcome to Visibly Fit, Mark. So glad that you can join us.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes. How are you today?
Good. And you?
Good. You're breathing well. Sound great.
Breathing. Yes.
Yes. Well, listen, Mark, you are passionate about people's livelihoods and how they are living their life. And it's through the power of breath that we live, right? And if we have, our breath is diminished in any way, we can feel it. Our organs are start to die, literally. And so when did you become really passionate about breathing and even human performance around the idea of breath?
Actually, it happened personally to me. Yeah, I'm 53 now, so probably around 40, my early 40s, I couldn't do all-nighters working. Everything started slowing down a little bit. And at the same time, about 7 years ago, I became aware of PN Medical, the company, very aware of it. And I just then fell in love with the respiratory system and how the cardiopulmonary systems work together. A lot of people don't realize how that connection is, that the heart is right there in the middle of the lungs. It's connected.
Yes.
and they really work as one system.
They do. They do. And so when people don't really have an understanding of the power of breath and how we need oxygen to even get our blood pumping more efficiently and effectively to all of our organs, I think a lot of people just dismiss breath because it just comes involuntary. It just happens, and you don't think about it very often, right? But so many people, due to stress and anxiety and just the things of the world, they're breathing in a shallow kind of way, aren't they?
Yeah, what's really interesting is that almost 90% of humans have some form of dysfunctional breathing. We start as babies really well. We all belly breathe just fine. And as you get older, you just start breathing higher and higher in your body, all the way to your shoulders once you're in your 60s or 70s. So we continually take more shallow and shallow breaths as we get older. And once you hit about age 30, your lungs actually stop the growth phase and they start diminishing a bit. So your capacity, your lung capacity actually starts deteriorating until you pass away, unless you can do something about it. And what really does happen, you touched on it, is that if you don't see anything happening, it's not evident, it's not right in your face, you're not going to do anything about it until it's almost too late, or you really do suffer from a breathing issue. And part of when I found out about the company and I bought it, I was an athlete, and what was happening is I did not realize that I was breathing fully incorrectly. I had not built up my diaphragm and all the muscles that surround, your lungs, that actually cause a better intake of oxygen and exchange of CO2. So it's been, it's just awareness. It's part of my vision and dream, is that I can bring awareness that most of the world actually has some form of dysfunctional breathing. It's fun for me. Like, everybody's different when they walk into a restaurant or when they go somewhere. I'll look and watch the way a person's respiration is going, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could go talk to that person. If they just would reset and change the way they're breathing, so many things would happen positively for them.
So you're like a respiratory evangelist is really kind of what you are.
Sure.
You could
I've
be,
never
right?
been called that, but I'll take that one.
I like that. I like that. Well, you are an entrepreneur at heart and an athlete as well. What sport did you play? What kind of?
Competitively, I played soccer.
Oh, nice. Well, you need
Yeah.
a lot of healthy lung support with soccer because that's nonstop. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, fantastic. I love soccer. Well, but as an entrepreneur, you stumbled across, kind of, but not really, PN Medical. So let's talk about how you just kind of folded into this company and it made sense for you to invest, and then tell us a little bit about the breather device that's connected with PN Medical.
Sure. Well, I first heard about it 14 years ago, and that was when I met my wife, and her mom actually invented this. She created this category, combined respiratory muscle training, 42 years ago now, back in 1980. So I heard about it 14 years ago, and then probably 8 or 9 years ago, I was in Fortune 100. I had a great career, easily could have retired, and she was about to sell the company. And I started really digging in and learning more about it. I'm like, wait, do not sell. Give me a chance. Let me look at this. And I do invent things. So I did 3D printing, created these devices, went to Advent Health, which used to be called Florida Hospital. We actually created prototypes there. And then I said, let me go ahead and, buy the company from you. And she agreed. She just said, as long as you treat the clinicians, the coaches, and the patients well, like I did, you can go for it. And I did, and we have, and I've honored that promise for these past 7 years since I took it over and have become CEO.
That's amazing, honestly, because you saw a really good thing and a way to help people, and the reason it's PN Medical is because of your mother-in-law's name, right? Peggy, is it Nicholson?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely the PN Medical.
PN.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is the little device. If you're watching on YouTube, I have one myself because I have the Breather Fit, which is more for athletes. But when I had COVID, and my husband as well, actually he got frustrated because He had the little device where you couldn't move. He just
Oh
had the
no, he
breather
was in the
itself.
control
He was
group.
in the
Yeah, we
control
had
group, and he's like, I want to get,
9 groups.
yes.
Oh
He's like,
no, he
oh
got,
no, you can move
yeah.
yours and I can't. And so we're a little competitive and kind of fun together. So I'm like, yeah, I've got mine on 5. What do you have yours on? Anyway, because it
Oh,
goes from 1 to 5 and it allows you to use resistance with your breath, which I love. Visibly Fit. You're probably not familiar, but Visibly Fit exercises is all about resistance to kind of exercises. So I have such passion about resistance for strengthening. And so to know that resistance can even really strengthen your lungs in such a great way is fascinating and wonderful to me. And so this little breather fit got us through COVID and on the other side in a rapid way. And so I thank you. I thank you for investing in this company. And I know that we have a mutual friend that is a singer, and it's helped her with her song and just getting, belting out those notes in a greater way. So there's different ways that the breather has helped people. But tell us a little bit more, first of all, about your family, because I know you are a family man, and I want to hear a little bit about how you bring breather fit and breather into your family.
sure. Well, it's really interesting. I've got 3 beautiful little boys and an amazing wife. I'm just so blessed. And the boys, 2 of the boys, my 10 and 12-year-old, are actually nationally ranked surfers. So they travel everywhere, and they've been using the breather fit for a year and a half now. It's their secret weapon. So just don't tell anybody.
No, we
And
won't.
it really works. I mean, they can hold their breath underwater longer. They actually paddle. They have more endurance, so they hit lactate threshold slower. And it's an edge they have over the other kids. And I love it that it's not, it's drug free. So it's completely safe, and it's teaching them actually, I don't know if we'll get into this, but I want to actually share some breathing secrets. I'll give you a couple tools for when an athlete's in a certain state of mind. We can cover a couple of those, and the boys do it. So they use it morning and night. I use the breather voice, the new one. And because I'm starting to speak more, I'm going to go on the speaking tour for the company for all the clinical studies that we're doing around the world. So I've got to get ready for this. And I switched over from breather fit to breather voice. And what's interesting with the studies we do studies with Army Rangers, Navy SEALs. I mean, these guys are like Olympians. They're the tip of the spear in just physical performance. They're the top 1%ers. And singers actually have stronger diaphragms than military and athletes because they truly know how to engage it more, but there's still so much more a singer can get from it, or a wind instrumentalist. So when I switched over, it was really interesting seeing these special forces guys struggle more than than someone else, and the gains they got tremendous gains from using it. They actually reduced their 2-mile run. It's a really important thing in the military. They cut it down by, I think, 39 seconds, cut their 2-mile run, which actually helped them get into Ranger School. Wow. So we helped, applicants that were trying to get into Ranger School. We actually increased the success rate for them to make it. Very rewarding. It just felt good to help the military and help our country.
No, that's huge. I mean, absolutely huge. And when you hear of that, and you hear of just maybe someone who is could never, act in that kind of way as far as performance wise, but they're dealing with COPD or the long-term COVID issues, and they're thinking, wow, that's great for them, but how is it really going to help me? I love hearing about the athletes. I've in Visibly Fit, I have a deep breathing technique that I will instruct my patients to do, and it's helped some of my patients that are tuba players and that kind of thing. So this takes it to a whole nother level, and I love that, and it's so vital for life and for anti-aging in all areas. But again, what about those people that have COPD or asthma or the long COVID issues? How is it really going to benefit them? And what have you seen in your research and studies?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we were born in medicine. So that's where we came from. So the last 42 years, it's mostly been medical, COPD, stroke, chronic heart failure, asthma, as you said. swallowing disorder, all kinds of speech issues too. So that's where we were born and have been for all these years. The last few years, actually, the military went to us, and that's how we then designed Breather Fit. It was engaged from them. They said, we know that we've tested these, soldiers as far as we can. The next frontier is breath without drugs. So they wanted something that was drug-free, and that was the impetus. Then we went to Olympians, professional athletes, and now weekend warriors and runners, yoga. And then but sticking with the medical, yes, that's where we have done most of the research over the years. Over 1.5 million people have gotten the breather or the breather pink on the medical side. And it's tremendous, the results. We're talking about someone who, a lot of our patients do have COPD, and they've gotten to a state where they can't even go get the mail, can't walk the dog, just basic quality of life issues. Right. And that is the key. If you can't address quality of life, all things happen: depression, weight, all this negative cycle happens, because they used to be like leaders of society. So when I'm talking to a person that's 80 years old, this person probably ran a giant company years ago, and they're just in this humble state where they're not able to do what they used to. So that reward we get them in every day. We hear the success stories, and it's like the fuel that keeps us all going. They always come in our little internal communication chat that we do between the employees. And it just puts a smile on my face every time I read one.
Yeah, so rewarding to know that you're making a difference, and it's just a simple drug-free solution, which I'm really all about as well. I will say that I mentioned to my husband, he dealt with apnea, sleep apnea for a while, and when I shared with him the statistics about that with the breather, he's like, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to keep using the breather," because it has really diminished over. He's been also using this thing called Excite, which stimulates the tongue. So we were thinking maybe it was just that, but I think it's probably a combination, because he's been very diligent with using the breather. And I think, yeah, wow, I can tell a difference. I'm not listening with him trying to gasp for breath, and it scares me every time I hear it, and it's horrible. So what's the percentage of that as far as people that are able to come out of sleep apnea issues because of the breather? What's the percentage?
It's interesting. When Peggy founded the company, my mother-in-law, she started in respiratory. So she was just dealing with COPD, asthma, all the things in that realm, and then in the cardiac realm. Mm-hmm. So this was something that we did not realize. Over the years, we started hearing these case studies and stories about mild sleep apnea, that it actually improves it. Because what it actually does, we haven't gone over it, is you're breathing under pressure. Yep. And you're in and out, and the dials, just real quick, how it works is each dial is set differently, because you don't have the same pressure when you're inhaling and exhaling. So you always start on a 1-in-1, put it in your mouth, and you're just breathing through a regular protocol. It's usually 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night. It's 2 to 3 sets based on who you are. If you're training, if you're an athlete, 3 sets. If you're a medical patient, 2 sets. And you just breathe through it 10 times. That's your first set, second. And what it's doing is it's strengthening and thickening the diaphragm primarily, and then the inner and outer costals, those muscle groups. And what that's doing is it's causing the exchange of oxygen and CO2 to move in a more efficient way and more. So you become a more efficient breather. You actually also break that cycle of that shallow breathing that we do. And I don't know if it's with age or it's with habit, but we all get to that, and we just take way too many breaths in a day. So it actually helps reset and gets you to think better while you breathe. So it's real simple what it does, but it has many positive effects.
And you have an app that goes along with the device that will help instruct you. And so it's very simple. It's got like a little time countdown. So it's very simple. If you don't want to count your breath, it does it for you. So you don't have to think too much. And I love that it's only 5 minutes in the morning, 5 in the evening. That's so doable. Because a lot of people just say, "Oh, I don't have time," even for something like this. But realize, okay, if you don't have time, what's it going to do to you if you don't take the time now. How's your life going to look, 10 years from now? So I love that you are on a mission to really help people breathe better. And I deal with a lot of really people between the ages of 50 and 65. Okay. And so, and beyond. And I do think that breathing is a core issue. And so what are some other ways that the breather has helped people overcome certain situations? Like I know in the notes I read, there's anxiety, depression, different things that people deal with as they're going through different phases in their life and different obstacles, but that can be an issue really with breathing too. Obviously how we fuel our body with food and how we move our body, but breathing as well. So let's talk a little bit about how it helps with anxiety and depression.
Oh, that's great. Well, anxiety, or at least stress, same, similar. We actually just published, I'm talking days ago, we did a study with Mayo Clinic, and we did it with their employees. We did it with the frontline MDs, the frontline surgeons. They're right there. They're with COVID. They're handling many issues, and stress and resilience and anxiety is huge. Now, the doctors we did it, they were, you could consider their alphas. They were already very resilient human beings, but we actually showed that 18% reduction in stress. I mean, that's huge for people who already were extremely resilient. And they just used the breather. It was just for 4 weeks. They started seeing results after a week. They just did it morning and night. But then we gave them some situational breathing strategies. And these are just a few simple breathing techniques that go
like
along
box breathing or something like that.
Well, it's interesting. Box breathing is probably the most overrated technique, just because some Navy SEALs talked about it 18 years ago or 15 years ago. The reason why box breathing, and it was for snipers, that was the original. It's you got to stay calm, and you got to just you don't move. So
on point.
It's interesting. These techniques all work because you're paying attention. So the paying attention to your breath actually is, you're already 60% there. The technique you use, it depends. So we gave them 2 techniques for the doctors. There was a calming when you leave work, about to transition to home. You do this 1-minute technique, and then we did a sleep technique. It's just 2 minutes before bed, and it just down regulates. It just, gets the autonomic system ready for bed. Yes, you do all the other things, but this technique has been shown to work. And actually, military did use it, and it's all over the world, both these techniques. There's no patent on them. It's just, there's so many. And especially if you're in yoga, you'll see so many. The key is a lot of them work. We know which ones scientifically do certain things for us. So we actually do research everything we promote. So we can be a little more specific about it.
Yeah, well, I think you hit something right on the head, and it's about being present in your breath, and being present, period. In a world where we are, not very present, because so many things are coming at us that it takes away our attention. To be even present in our breath is so important. And like you said, when people were just aware and present, it started to regulate their autonomic and parasympathetic nervous systems, and so they were being more balanced and not so anxious and feeling stressed. So that's huge. Let's talk a little bit about I know we talked about sleep apnea, but what about the effects on sleep in general? Like, I'll have a lot of clients that say, man, I just want a really good night's sleep. I'm sick of waking up. And is it just hormonal, or what's my deal? And so we talk through a lot of that, and a lot of it is based on what they're feeding their mind and their body. But also, let's talk about how breath plays a big role in their quality of sleep.
Yeah, that's a great question too. Actually, it is all about the down regulation. So when you can down regulate, but for me, I have issues with sleep too, a lot. And I just can't stop thinking about work all the time. When I go to bed, I'm still thinking. So it's the middle of the night that's the worst for me. And the technique that I use and others have used, it's real simple. It's really just 5 breaths. You count 5 in, count 5 out. It's all about simplicity. I've got the really vast, advanced ones, but the bottom line, are you going to do it? Keep
Right.
it simple and it still works. I just do 5 in and 5 out, and I try to go in for 5, out for 5. Sometimes it's even better to actually do a longer exhale. So you can do maybe a 4-7, in for 4, out for 7 when you wake up in the middle of the night. But again, that little routine to get to sleep that we do, that that's a strong one as well. And
Okay.
after this, of course, I'll share links. These are little 1-minute videos, and you can share them with all of, all the people that subscribe and follow you. Please share that with everybody.
Yeah, definitely. I will. Thank you so much. I think, everyone is so different and we're all trying to have a best. I mean, I would say we all, I'm generalizing. I think most of us want to live our best life. And if you don't, then it's a question to ask why not? Why don't you? Desire to live your best life, but so many people are dealing with different things. Whether it's the sleep, whether it's not being able to run up the stairs like they used to because of a breathing condition, or not being able to sing as powerfully, or all the different things. And so I love that breathing is kind of the I guess the center of it all. It's the center of our
It's an
performance
anchor.
level. It is.
It's
It
an
is an
anchor.
anchor.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's really how we are operating best, is when we have the best optimal breath, and we have to be intentional with it, just like anything else, right? And it becomes a habit in how we breathe or don't breathe. So what about, do you work with chiropractors and that kind of thing? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, we've started working more with chiropractors. Their approach, their holistic approach to things, and the fact that a lot of them don't go to the drug route, they go to the healing route, the
Right.
proper way, the way God built us to be able to heal ourselves and be healed. So we do love working with chiropractors. It's funny, we're just now venturing out. We've mostly just been at the high level at hospitals, nursing homes on the medical side, and now we're venturing out more in the consumer side. So we are going, it's just funny you say that, because we just this year started really reaching out to chiropractors.
Yeah, I could really see that connection because it is more holistic in nature. And so this is drug-free solution, and that's what we want. We just need tools, right? Healthy tools that will get us to our next level of living. And that's what this breather app is. So breather device is. So tell me a little bit, maybe two of your favorite stories. Maybe give me an athletic performance story, and maybe a senior, maybe someone in their 70s or 80s, kind of a story, and what they've gone through and how they've overcome with the breather fit or breather voice or whatever.
Sure. At the athletic level, I'm going to go personal on this one.
Okay, good.
So again, my two kids, I mean, we've got story after story from military to pro athlete, but how about pediatrics? And, this thing that we're learning too, now that we're really deep as parents in competitive sports, we're learning that it's kids get out of sports because the parents, and parents are vicious. So as we're dealing with all these other parents
Sad.
and the viciousness of it all, no matter what the sport is, I
Right.
mean, from soccer to surfing to jujitsu, whatever
Football.
it is,
Mm-hmm.
we see it. It's insane. So with our kids, the story, I was alluding to it already, is that because they use their breather fits and they use it 5 days a week, they're really good. I cannot believe they're that disciplined. Of course, I'm their dad, and I do monitor. So I do put the arm down on them sometimes, but they're pretty diligent about it, and they do see the results, and it has given them that little edge over a kid that may be 10 pounds heavier, 2 inches taller. And those are edges. They really are. They're
Yeah.
stronger. But my boys process oxygen and CO2 in a more efficient way, which lets them go longer. And at the end of a heat, they're still strong while the other guys are starting to weaken. So big benefit on the sports side. On the patient side, I mean, there's a story that actually got me to leave that Fortune 100 job. It was really the impetus that I'm like, you know what? I need to start creating a legacy. And I feel like what I'm doing is not legacy building. And I really want to make an impact, to millions of people, not just in my little space in life. So one of the stories that really got me was a young woman was in a car accident, real serious car accident, and She showed up at the ER. She was close to death. Actually, the end result is that she did become a paraplegic. So, full back broken, gone in that way. And when she got to the ER, guess who admitted her to the ER? It was they were newlyweds. Her husband actually admitted her to the ER. So you can imagine the emotion.
Oh, wow.
And, he wanted to die right there. I mean, that's my wife. And this was in Peggy's hospital this was, in Florida Hospital, which is Advent Health. And Peggy had the breather there at that time. This was before me. And they administered it to wean her. They weaned her off of everything she needed to be off of. And she recovered much faster, or she got to a better state much faster than if none of this had happened. Because, you're sitting there, you're not moving. There's no diaphragmatic, there's nothing. You're not.
Atrophy starts to set in. Yeah.
So the only exercise she had was the breather. And what happened is, because it was causing her to really move that oxygen and CO2, it actually helped her heal faster. So that story alone, I'm like, it can do that. That little thing can make this much of an impact in a life. Because you know what people are looking for, especially on the medical side? They're looking for hope. Well, yes, they're all looking for everybody.
But yes, they are looking for hope, but they're looking for a quick fix.
Yeah, we're all I'm looking for the quick fix every day. But that hope, because like you alluded to earlier, this becomes an anchor between your steroid treatments and whatever else you're doing. You go to this and it creates peace, because after you use it, you actually are more relaxed. It actually puts you in a more relaxed state. We don't need to be upregulated as much. And on the athletic side, you actually have to downregulate before you go into a big competition. People think, get you going, do the thing that the rugby guys do that we love, from New Zealand. But that actually you don't need that. You actually need to downregulate to get back to the front of your brain. So those are two stories, and they just every day, like I said, more and more come in.
That's so cool. Very inspiring. And I know just having your boys be disciplined in that and see that edge that they are encountering and experiencing is probably like a proud dad moment. You're like, I'm giving them that drug-free solution, and they are getting an edge over their competition. You mentioned brain, and I do want to talk about brain, because a lot of people are dealing with brain fog and fatigue. And a lot of times it's because we're shallow breathing and the stress is ridiculous. Let's talk about how, it's made an effect on people's thought processes, and how it's helping even just think more clearly and have an edge in that area.
Yeah. Well, I want to touch on something we've learned over the last 2 years. So as soon as COVID hit, right when it hit, we did a mask study with what are the implications of wearing a mask. We did it at Mayo, and we did it at Prisma Health, which is a large hospital group, more south, it's more South Carolina, North Carolina area. So we studied that. We did that in the onset. Which mask is better? Which is worse? What are the impacts of it? What happens? So we found some really interesting things. I won't get into that right now. You can read the whole study in the background.
I would love to hear more about that and the details.
I'll send it to you.
Okay.
And then fast forward. So from day one, what it was is that we've been in the respiratory field for all these decades, and COVID presents in the respiratory world. At the base, it's your respiratory system is affected significantly. So we started doing small studies, and then we went into a big study. We're in the middle. We're finishing a 1,500 patient study right now with Mayo. We worked with Mount Sinai. We worked with others, but this big one, I actually just got data today. So we started collecting over the last few weeks the preliminary data. I can't give you a lot. I can just I'll give you some.
Give us a
right
snippet.
now, because
yes.
Yeah, so you're actually first to hear, because I just
heard that right here. First to hear, you guys.
2 hours ago. So it's
hot
coming
off the
to you
press.
first. Woo. What we learned first off is that since COVID, and now, the World Health Organization reported that there's a rise in anxiety of 25% across the world. So everyone across the board is more anxious than they were pre-COVID. Well, that creates a lot of problems at work and at home, many. And
Sure.
when we dug into that more, and when we started going with patients and figuring out, and what we found is when we first started just having them do RMT, respiratory muscle training, and we started them straight out, a number of them, it didn't work because they were either too diminished or there were other things going on. So this was pretty profound what we learned, and we're actually getting a patent for it. So I'm going to try to talk in code.
Okay.
But there is something about the autonomic nervous system that we had to reset. So there was a resetting first. So you actually were in our study, as you alluded to, and your husband. And we are going to present this to you, is that we do this autonomic reset. It's pretty quick, and we all need it. The whole world needs it, just because what I said in the beginning is so many of us actually have dysfunctional breathing patterns, and we don't notice it because it's so slow. It creeps up. It takes 30, 40, 50 years till it really presents. That's why you don't even care. And you think, oh, I'm just getting old. I'm getting slower. I just can't lift weights as much as I'm just all these things that happen. But you need to notice that it's just a gradual depletion of energy. It's, what creates it? Food and oxygen. That's it. Energy is created by food and oxygen.
Right.
So if you're not moving that oxygen around, you are losing and slowly getting less and less energy as you get older. So the things we learned, also brain fog, depression, of course, smell and taste, but the brain fog was big, and the dizziness, and then the breathlessness, and just this lack of, or lower energy, and lower memory too, lack of memory. We saw this everywhere across the board. And what's happened, what we're all learning is that long COVID now, so COVID hit us, and now we're getting the ramifications of it, which is the diagnosis, the common phrase, it's either PAX or PASC, but the easy way to call this is long COVID. It encapsulates all those issues. And it's a real thing. So 30 to 50% of anyone who's had COVID actually has one or two of those. There are 8 main symptoms around long COVID, but they have at least one. So this is serious. So we're talking at least 150 million people right now in the world have long COVID. And that equates to, well over 10 or 15 million just in America. So it's becoming serious. It's real.
So we need to reset on many levels, not just with our respiratory care, but we need.
Well, what I'm going to share with you is this. So the preliminary data this morning because it was 1,500 patients, we were able to create 9 subgroups. So 9 cohorts, they're called. Yep. And your husband, unfortunately, was in the cohort that wasn't supposed to get really anything. It was almost like a sugar pill.
Oh,
so
okay.
I feel bad for him. So
well, I don't, because remember, we're competitive. So I won on that deal. I won.
Yeah, definitely. So the good news is that what the therapy of this device actually works on long COVID. So it affected positively depression, brain fog, aches, and some of the other symptoms. So it's serious. It's going to be special when this is released. I think it's going to be published. Mayo's in charge, so it's when they do it, but I believe they're going to publish it by January. That's our hope.
Wow.
But I'm glad I can at least share a little bit that this preliminary data showed that across the board, all 9 groups, we believe there were 2 groups, 2 of the protocols that were unique, and that those 2 are probably going to be the winners. But I can just report right now, all 9 actually had a positive uptick across the board on all factors.
That's huge. I mean, huge. The power of breath and the fact that you are making a difference in this world. I thank you for your passion. I thank you that you have just a desire to get this device in the hands of everybody, because everyone can benefit, whether it's your grandma or your young child that's in a sport, right? So anyone can benefit. I do want to ask a couple more questions quickly, because I know we have to go with time here. But most of my listeners, this is a faith-based podcast. And I would love to hear your faith story. I know you're a man of faith. You have a family that's faith-filled. And if you wouldn't mind sharing on a personal level, that'd be fantastic.
Oh, thanks for asking me a
Yeah.
great question. Yeah. Well, I actually wouldn't have married my wife if I wasn't saved. So I would not have my 3 kids. I would not have my wife because she's way above my pay grade, and it was part of that story.
Aw.
I'm 53 now. I got saved at 29. Um, Went through school, college, fraternity, all that good or bad stuff. And I almost feel like it's great that I have that story of what I was previous. I was single. I got married. I got married at 39. So I was late to marriage, but I needed to wait because I was not ready. And, being saved at 29, it took me a while to evolve as a Christian. And my faith story is one that I'm living out. The part that I didn't realize that it's work every day so after I was saved, it was really cool watching TV or watching movies. It was like, oh my gosh, I can't do any of this stuff anymore. I can still have the time of my life, but you see, you see the devil in things. You see the familiar spirits. We're reading this book, Familiar Spirits, right now. Oh my gosh, it's life changing. You got
I'll
to
have to
get the
check
book.
that out.
Yeah.
Who's the author? Do
I
you know?
forgot, but look up Familiar
Familiar
Spirits.
Spirits. Okay, yeah, I'll check that
It's
out.
patterns that stay with us our whole life, and it's these familiar spirits, these
Mm,
from the devil that stay with us. So my faith story is ongoing. I fall every day, right?
yeah,
Get
but
back up
grace.
and try to start again, and I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And
So
here's
what
the
was that?
thing.
Yeah.
This is the biggest part, is that I grew up Catholic. My wife did too, and we really were just Easter and Christmas.
Right.
And I feel like what's really happening is we have now set a new course for the next couple hundred years after our kids, because our kids are being raised up in the Bible,
Yes.
and they're just great, loving, kind kids. And what comes out of them is kindness.
Mm,
And what an entryway to meet other Christians. They
yeah.
just go I have them shake hands of every stranger. I don't fall for that crap. That was what I was told. We were all told, don't talk to strangers. I tell them to go talk to every darn stranger they see. And what they do is they spread love,
Yeah.
and they just open people up. Like when we go in restaurants, I have them try to meet as many people in the restaurant. It is the most hilarious thing, and it just lights up the whole restaurant. So that's what God's doing in my life, is that my kids are not going to make the mistakes, or they're not going to make as many of the foolish mistakes I made growing up.
Yeah. Well, I love that, Mark. I mean, that's the true legacy, of course, that you're leaving. And my husband was brought up Catholic, and I understand there's some great benefits of having that foundation, right? But when you have when you really know Jesus, and you have the Holy Spirit, it's just it's a game changer. And so I know the power of how Jesus is working in you and your family's life because of that foundation you had, and now it's just kind of piggybacked on it. And man, the legacy that you're going to leave for hundreds of years to come is huge. And so not just with your family, but with the PN Medical breather devices. And so thank you so very much. On one last note, just because it's a question and you hear this often on podcasts, but what is the best piece of advice that anyone has ever given you? Because as an entrepreneur, I'm sure you've been given a lot of advice.
I'm going to go straight to my business side of my brain.
Okay.
I was meeting with an investor years ago, like 5 years ago, and he said, "What's your 3% plan?"
Mm,
Do you know what that is?
I've heard about it, but I don't know
You
what
have.
mine is.
Oh, what he means is,
Maybe it's 1%.
okay,
Is what I'm
so
thinking of.
what it is once your company breaks past 2% market share,
Mm,
you're either going to be crushed or bought, or crushed double. So what's your plan? That advice was so special for us because of COVID. Our company actually grew 200% when COVID hit. So we're in this growth phase, and we're going to that spot now. So that was the best business advice I've had over the last 5 years.
yeah, that's huge. Are you going to grow it to sell it, or grow it to, yeah, how's it going to look? Yeah, 3% plan. Okay. I got that.
Yeah.
I got that. That's cool.
Mhm.
Awesome. All right. Well, would you like to pray us out? And thank you again for being on this podcast. Those of you listening real quick, I do have something for you, and I'll put it in the show notes as well, Mark. But if you go to pnmedical.com, you can save on any of the devices, any of the breather devices, the breather fit, or the breather voice by using the code Visibly Fit, all as one word, all in capital letters. But I'll put that in the show notes. So would you be willing to pray us out? And I thank you again for sharing your knowledge and your passion here on Visibly Fit.
Yeah, and thank you for that honor.
Yeah.
Dear Lord, thank you that we were able to meet today. I hope that things that we said today will carry forward to others, and then they can spread the word, the good word about breath, and about that you can actually make a change and a positive change in your life easily. And just again, pray for everyone that's listening or watching this. Pray for everyone that we all have a great day, a great rest of the year. Amen.
Yes. Amen. Thanks, Mark. And thank you for listening. We will catch you same time, same place next week right here on Visibly Fit.
Bye-bye.
Well, that's a wrap for today's show, so thank you so much for tuning in. I love spending this time with you. To learn more and get more free resources, just head on over to wendiepett.com, and thank you in advance for sharing this episode and this podcast, following and subscribing not only to this podcast, but finding me on social media, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you are, I'm probably there too. Until next week and our next podcast time together, make it a Visibly Fit day.